Hello, everybody. This is Tom Mazloom. Thanks for joining us. This is the official podcast of the M Network. We're talking AI today. There's an article on our website with a conversation between me and Grok. It's terrifying. I'm not going to lie. It's a little terrifying. And I thought I'd follow up with a good friend of mine, Brad Newman. Brad Newman is the head of the AI practice at Baker McKenzie in Palo Alto. And he also has testified in front of the U.S. Senate on things AI and sort of the legislation and consequences that we should be thinking about. Brad, thanks for joining us.
Tom, thanks for having me. If only my wife thought I was always right like you do. Quick point of correction. I am the leader of the AI practice at Baker McKenzie. I'm also the chair of the American Bar Association AI subcommittee, and I've been around policy, law, and technology in this field for well over 10, 11 years.
Your specialty, how did you get into AI? Because you started, your specialty has always been in intellectual property and trade secrets and stuff like that. Where does AI overlap with that?
Way back in the dinosaur age of about 2012, I was representing a number of the companies that we all know now today who were developing early versions of commercial products we all use now. And I got concerned. I got concerned as a citizen. This was before law firms had AI practices, before Congress was having hearings on AI. And I got very, very concerned about what I was seeing for the simple reason, Tom, I know you'll understand this, that good intentions in this field often can be used to develop X with the question, can X be developed, not should X be developed? And as you know, I've got children, and I'm very, very concerned about the world that they're going to come into in a Western liberal democracy with AI doing what AI is doing in all of our lives. So it's more Brad Goes to Washington. Back in the day, I published some thought pieces in TechCrunch. I ultimately formulated some federal legislation that was turned into a House of Representative draft bill in 2018, still exists. And I think we need federal omnibus legislation, but I'm probably way ahead of myself here, Tom. So you lead. Where do you want to go here?
Well, I mean, as you know, I've written my own stuff about AI. And it's because part of what we do for a living at my company, the M Network, while we do a lot of branding and advertising, the other side of it is crisis communications. And what we're trained to do in crisis is think about what's the worst that could happen. And I'm not sure that anybody's thinking about the worst that could happen. So let me play that clip of you telling us what the worst that could happen as you sat before the Senate.
You talked about the downside risks. I'm going to call it the nefarious use of AI. Could you give me your top three biggest concerns, both domestically and internationally, in terms of what that might be in the time you've been looking at this?
In the employment context or general?
I'm talking more broadly here now.
Yes, I think AI could be used nefariously and will be by state actors to influence domestic issues. I think there will be a lot of fakes, voice and image. I think AI will be used to interfere with our elections and promulgate cyber attacks. Those are the most national security points of concern, in my view, X the workplace.
I'm glad you got it on record because we hear a lot about it, and a lot of times it's just referred to generally. Thank you.
So you're sticking by it. I think you pretty much nailed it, but you tell me.
Well, so Tom, you're one of the real ones who understand this. There is a fourth one. I stick by all those three. The fourth one is the domestic government control of the citizenry in connection with private enterprise to control the population. Similarly to a social credit system that China uses openly, we're not supposed to be doing things like that in a Western liberal democracy, but I can assure you it's very much underway, and that is where we're headed with monetary policy, with education, with every facet of our life that matters. AI is going to dictate who gets the goodies and who gets left out.
Yeah, because it could crunch the numbers and do a formula, an algorithm that says, well, Tom is relatively in good shape, but he has his occasional bourbon. We're going to have to increase his insurance costs.
Absolutely. Or depending on the party in power, you can't use your credit card to purchase an abortion or a gun, depending on who's in power.
Yeah,
You
that's
can't
dark.
have your children. You can't have your children get admitted to, a particular college if something you or they said is deemed not appropriate. And it goes on and on and on, from health and education to national security, jobs. Every facet of our life is going to be dictated by AI, and soon there won't be any humans in the chain. And believe me, in my field, there are so many pretenders walking around who have learned the lingo, know a few buzzwords, and hold themselves out. There are less and less folks who really understand the technology, the law, and the policy, and that is scary, scary, scary to me as well.
So, in all of this, I mean, do you see a role where big corporations get there before government, or do we just start with government controls? Is it just a few handful of people making a crap ton of money in the short term before government says, "Hey, we want in"? Or, I mean, where do you see that trajectory going?
So you always ask great questions and the right questions, and that is actually what is already underway. There are a few companies that have most of the data sets necessary to actually train algorithms on a large scale. They are in charge. They want the government to do nothing for as long as the government will do nothing. And there's a patchwork of regulation and state, local level. But Congress only acts when there's a public emergency that's high profile. That really hasn't happened yet. So the private companies, I will not name them. Many of them I've represented for years, some I haven't. They're in pole position now with no end in sight, and they're running the tables.
Well, I could hazard a guess. I won't name them either, but I'm going to guess that at least a few of them are heavy into social media as well, because I can't think of a better training ground. What better large language model would you have than a constantly updated feed of people being snarky?
So I will not answer that question for obvious reasons, but I will shift it. Out here in Silicon Valley, and I'm in DC, I'm in Miami, I'm in New York, but in the Valley right now, you got the really smart people saying AI is going to improve our lives. Now the doctors at Stanford and Berkeley are all trying to do AI startups that will enable you to look at your blood tests in a whole new way and your biomarkers in a whole new way. And it's that promise that AI can improve the world that you hear so much about. But in reality, it's out of control right now in every way, shape, and form, from privacy, you owning your own data about who you are, your spending habits, sleeping habits, health habits, what you like. Right now, AI knows Tom Mazloom better than your wife or children knows you, and that's scary and monetizable, by the way.
Yeah, they're making money off me, no doubt. So how do we get to the good stuff? Right? Like looking at our blood work in a whole new way and
Yeah.
processing massive amounts of information in ways we hadn't thought of before, finding those scientific discoveries, unraveling the mysteries of the universe, while mitigating some of the angst over disaster, the pending dystopian future that guys like me peer into my crystal ball and go, oh, we're headed there.
So I have given that a lot of thought because I'm a contrarian and a libertarian, and I don't believe in government regulation. But in the AI context, the answer to that question is as follows. We want to promote responsible innovation, and we want to protect individual liberty. And the way to do that is an omnibus piece of federal legislation that carves out prescribed areas where AI cannot be used alone without humans in the chain to do certain things. And this is ex-military because that's a whole different ball of wax. We could talk about that on another podcast if you want. But we need to have areas where AI is not allowed to be used as the sole decision maker. And there are areas that I've articulated in my writing and my proposed legislation that include education, that include employment, and that include health. And you can imagine, I just want to give you this one real quick. You and I both have the same cancer. But AI knows that I smoked a pack a day for 10 years and you swam for 10 years. And as a matter of pure statistical predictive science, I'm likely not going to live as long as you with the same exact cancer. And you and I are the same age and the same race, and everything else is the same. Should I get a lesser standard of medical care based on what AI says is likely going to be the outcome? And there are policy decisions that are reasons and rationale where the answer could be yes, but not, in my view, in a Western liberal democracy. And it gets real dangerous. We're quickly down race, we're quickly down gender, we're quickly down socioeconomic. Talk about obesity. If RFK at 60, whatever he is, has the same disease that a morbidly obese person has, should all of the medical resources be directed to keep RFK Jr. alive because he's kept himself in shape? And you can play this game quite a lot.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I just think we need to be careful of what we use AI for while it's capable of doing all these great things. And the last thing I'll say on this is be careful about the great things, because humans are lazy and we give things up. We search on the internet for free, but we make the bargain that you can have my privacy. You know what I'm searching, you know who I am, because it's easy and it's quick. Well, AI taps right into that part of human nature that's lazy and wants immediate gratification. So we have to be vigilant.
Yeah, it was pretty scary when I did my test drive with the AI, and I posted it to our site so you could read that, uh, where it got stuff wrong. And I asked the AI chatbot, like, hey, it's okay if you get that wrong because that's just a minor detail, but what happens when you get like the big thing wrong that maybe mankind's relying on? And the chatbot said, yeah, that's right, we hallucinate. We're trying to make that not a thing, but we hallucinate. And I'm just wondering how many people know that, or they just it's the same people who go to the Google to answer all of their questions. It's like Google is not a primary source. You have to do more research than that. Who do you think legislates that in the end, though? Is it elected officials, or shouldn't we be bringing in like experts like you and others who have studied AI and have worked in and around it for forever?
Well, first of all, I commend everyone to read your article, your blog post, because the questions you asked were absolutely the right questions we should be asking Grok or Claude. I can't remember which one you used, but I read with fascination. You were asking all the questions I would ask. And to your point about he made a mistake that you were the author, he said somebody else had written something you wrote, and then acknowledge that that simple error could be magnified such that a million people see it and think someone other than you wrote it, and that becomes the truth. And so, to your point, in my proposed legislation, we have the SEC regulates public markets, FDA regulates food and health and safety for food. We've got the NLRB for labor relations. We've got the CTFB. We've got all these federal agencies. I'm advocating for an AI board in Washington, D.C. that has expert members on it to adjudicate challenges to AI that are alleged to have veered into prohibited uses. And so I think we do need specialists. This would have to be created by Congress, same as other agencies. And again, I'm anti-legislation as a general matter. We need an AI board, vigilant, protecting public safety on a uniform basis across the country. And I suggested that in my proposed legislation. I think it'll happen too, but it's going to be a painful process making that sausage.
Yeah, people have to be sufficiently scared enough to actually introduce the legislation. What do consumers and regular schmucks like me do between now and then? What's the buyer beware point on this?
You make an informed decision about what you're comfortable with. A lot of people wear these devices that measure your heart. My son wears it. He's like, I'm in sleep deficit. I need more oxygen, my macros, my protein. It can monitor everything. And he sees nothing wrong with that. Now, me, I don't want that. I don't want the man collecting my data 24 hours a day. It's just, I'm not comfortable with it. If we are making informed decisions about what part of who we are we're giving up for what reason, then I would say it's an individual choice and peace be with you. It's when we're not aware that our phones are listening to us, our devices are tracking us. It's everywhere. Our cars are nothing but data collection devices and soon to be data delivery devices. If we don't understand that as a society, then we're headed quickly to you make a airline reservation someplace in 10 years or less, and the airline says you can't book first class. And you're like, why can't I book first class? Because you did X, Y, and Z, and you're on a registry, you're only eligible for a coach by the bathroom in the back. We want to stay far away from social credit systems like that in a Western liberal democracy. That's my view.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Moslum, you're not allowed to buy that bourbon this month. You've met your quota. I can see where that's going. Last question. My clients are mostly nonprofits, government agencies, foundations, people who do good things in the universe. What are the pros and cons of this pending AI storm in the philanthropic world?
Like in every world, AI can allow you to be more efficient. So if you have a grant, a client has a grant to help with X, part of that money needs to be spent on human beings helping to execute on that. AI now allows everybody to do more with less, provided you verify the output is accurate. So where you might have someone generating an invite to a gala or a request to donate money to this cause, or looking for the people you want to help. Have you been affected by the hurricane, or do you have this issue or that issue where you're eligible for aid? You can now have an AI tool draft that in 10 seconds, and it's pretty darn good in its defense. And I think your blogs show that in a lot of ways. So there are a lot of good uses for AI. Grant writing itself, you need to get that grant from the government to continue funding yourself. AI can do a really nice first draft of your grant application. So there are a lot of good uses in that space. I would encourage NGOs and nonprofits and philanthropic organizations to really explore how you can use AI to be more efficient so that more of the money you're being granted goes to the recipients you're trying to help.
Yeah, I imagine we'll find out that there's great ways to use AI for metrics as well, like, how many people did we help? Did literacy rates go up longitudinally and all that stuff?
Yeah, exactly. And you can also keep track of how much money went to the end goal, because one of the criticisms of NGOs is the overhead sucks it up. So AI can generate graphs and say, look, 83 cents went to where it was supposed to, and we need 17 cents for people to make sure it goes there. No shame in that.
Yeah, in the meantime, it's always going to be human beings helping other human beings that drive the industry, and that may just drive all of the industries, I'm not sure.
Yeah, but I think in NGOs too, there's that fear that one day I'll need help. I got hit by a hurricane, and the NGOs are completely AI driven, and I'm locked out for some reason I shouldn't be from the aid. So again, humans in the chain to me and oversight right now are the two keys.
All right, Brad. Well, thanks for taking the time. I appreciate you joining me, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks, I think, right?
You will see me in a couple of weeks.
I'll see you in New York.